Hello, everyone. I am Seth Chalmers, host of the Destination Interesting podcast. We are back for episode 2, this time with a good friend of mine in destination marketing, Marcie Graham. Marcie is the marketing manager and public information officer for the city of La Quinta, California. Among other things, we discussed how she deals with wearing multiple hats, what it's like working in a city office, and how to balance massive event partnerships and the needs of the local community. I had a great time talking with Marcie, and I really hope you enjoyed as well. Here's Marcie.
When you attend conferences, when you have meetings with people, it's so hard because there's always a jam-packed agenda that you don't get to sit and visit with people and connect with people and understand people. And you're always trying to hit another session or another meeting that it's this is the stuff that I wish they would allow these it's almost like speed dating, if you will, for industry people to sit and kind of go hey, what are you experiencing that I might be able to help or I can relate to, and vice versa. And so just being able to have these conversations is always really nice. I think it's so important. I try and carve some time out at different conferences and whatnot to go, hey, what are you guys experiencing?
Yeah, what's really happening?
What's really happening? Because I think that there's always the dog and pony show, and it's the the lights and the hustle and bustle, and it's all visually appealing, and it's just everything sounds amazing, and I'm gonna try and attempt to do everything, but it's but what's really happening behind that kind of closed door?
Well, that's a perfect intro, I guess.
There you go.
Marcie, thank you for being on Destination Interesting.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. So I guess talking about conferences and the dog and pony show and all of that stuff, what's something that you actually like about that part of it, the conferences?
I think, I will say, and it sounds probably cliche, but it's so true. It's meeting new people, meeting like-minded people. I feel especially with destination marketing, people don't necessarily, outside of the industry, don't necessarily understand what that means. And so it's kind of like that meme. It's this is what I do. This is what people think I do, right? And I actually did something like that here for one of our all hands meeting, is because nobody really understood what I did. They're oh, she's shaking hands and kissing babies. I'm gosh, no, I wish, right? Yeah. And it was really that education. So unless you're in the industry, people don't really understand what you're doing. And so being able to connect with people, especially for example, City of La Quinta is 41,000 people. We get about 10,000 more during season. So we're kind of a smaller city. And so when I'm able to connect with somebody who's similar in size and be able to just literally brainstorm and
jam out and be okay, all right, this is not working for us.
100%. I mean, literally you go through so many ups and downs and red tape and hurry up and wait and right. And to be able to just converse with people who understand that. And then how did they get past that, or how did they get through that, or how do they create a success from that? And it's so important. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, I think one of the things I get most out of the conferences is the time I get to meet other people. And I remember back in, I guess it was 2017, my first DMA West Tech Summit.
Oh, man.
I think it was in Spokane, Washington.
Yeah.
And it was my first foray really into destination marketing and okay, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And it became one that I really liked to go to a lot because I felt like the people and the topics were better, perhaps. Maybe better isn't the right term, but being geared toward more techie stuff and being geared toward, okay, what's happening kind of behind the scenes that we can actually lean into.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really, really enjoy about it. But it's very funny that there is this machine that exists for destination marketing where it's you have the destinations.
Yep.
And then there's all this other stuff that has grown to kind of create this industry.
It's like the Wizard of Oz, right?
It's pay no attention to what's happening behind the curtain. So yeah, I guess maybe you can tell us what your role is here.
Sure.
Maybe your title and your role and maybe what your day-to-day looks like.
Sounds good. So here at the City of La Quinta, it's kind of multiple hats, right? City of La Quinta, I am the marketing manager, the public information officer, as well as assisting with economic development. And I'd love to be able to say my day to day is, X, Y, and Z. It really is. It's like there is no X, Y, and Z here. It is a zoo. It is every day is different, which I actually enjoy because I think the monotony of just doing the same thing every day. I'm not one of those people that can do that. And there's a lot of people out there that can, and God love them, but I am not. I need to be on my toes. And so it really is just like understanding the destination from all aspects, right? From our community, from a visitor, from a partner, from a business, and really immersing myself into what we're doing here. And so every day is different. I literally can have meetings scheduled from start to finish, and maybe 70% of that will actually happen. And the other 30% is going to get moved because media, exactly. Media shows up, and we do get media showing up like randomly, right? Or from the public information side, there's been police activity that I need to now get information out. So it is, every day is different, and it's all great, but it is just, there's a lot.
So I'd imagine that the wearing multiple hats is pretty common at DMOs and CVBs, and you're part of city.
Yeah.
So you're an office of the city. So how do you feel like that probably differs than maybe what people are experiencing at DMOs that might be separate?
Yeah, I think, with DMOs, I want to say they're lucky in the sense that
my experience is it's easier.
It is. They are easy. They have it a little bit easier because I feel like it's hard work, don't get me wrong, but they get the fun part, right? It's not a bad gig to be able to market and promote a destination with all the attractions and things like that. So for me, being in the office of the city, I'm doing all those things, but I'm also having to be completely conscious of what the community, the residents,
the compliance thing, and the regulatory stuff, and the residents.
100%. And when we have large events, so a few weeks ago, we had the American Express PGA Tour that came through here in our city, and since American Express took over as a sponsor, they now brought AEG into the mix, which then brings a fan experience. So, it's golf during the day and it's concert series at night. And so this past year, we had on Friday Keith Urban, and on Saturday it was Train. And what's difficult is that we get thousands of people coming into the city for the tournament, and the bonus is the concert. And what's difficult sometimes is, it becomes a little bit of an inconvenience for our residents, especially with traffic. When someone's in an inner city, LA, New York, Chicago, traffic
it's kind of a given.
Yeah. Here, where a lot of people escape those places to avoid all that, as soon as it starts, you see red taillights, it's like, what is happening?
How do you deal with that?
So we really do. Our partnership with American Express has strengthened, oh my gosh, so much over the years. I really make it a point to meet with the organization of American Express and their event company, which is Sport 5. And they understand it too, because they hear it, whether they're on site and they hear it or whatnot. And so we really do take a proactive approach in planning this stuff out months in advance. And it's literally every aspect of media and social media, right? Whether it's digital ads, it's banners on the roads, it's we had these huge American Express 8-foot blocks in some of our roundabouts so that people will just see it. And it's really having those and radio, TV, right? And it's really having those conversations so that if somebody, which happens, if somebody's hey, didn't know this was happening, it's where have you been? Yeah. Yeah. And it's great because they'll post that on social media because that's always a platform to go and complain.
Yeah.
And then everybody else will be where have you been? It's all over the place.
You'll get other people chiming in and saying hello.
Yeah. Because as a city, we're not necessarily going to respond to that.
Yeah.
Because it's not a, he said, she said kind of deal. It's just hey, here's the event, here's what happened. And then when they're complaining, it's seriously, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's just the importance of getting that community buy-in, because they all understand the economic impact it has on the city, which is amazing. Our small business, I mean, these people, the golfers are coming out with an entourage, the week of. The promoters of the event are coming in groves months in advance, and all of our small businesses like benefit from that. So
you get the ahead of time stuff, and then you get the long tail afterwards of that. How have you guys, for a destination that perhaps doesn't have an American Express partnership and a big event that happens, how do you go about trying to develop programs like that?
I think it's not easy, and that's the other part is. I would say I've been with the city almost 8 years. And when I came, yes, the golf tournament was happening, but it was the Bob Hope, right? And it was at multiple venues, not just like a couple in La Quinta. And it was kind of like that was the big thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, the music festivals, which happen in our sister city, City of Indio, those are huge, and we felt the economic impact of that as well, which is a bonus. We'll ride those coattails all day long. Who wouldn't? But as we've progressed over these years, we've now acquired like an Ironman, which year one was horrible. Oh my gosh. I mean, the amount, you would have thought we killed firstborns, right? It was horrible.
People were just freaking out.
They were freaking out. They were stuck in traffic. They, didn't read the maps.
Because you would have had closures, maybe?
Yeah, we definitely had closures, kind of along the main thoroughfare. People didn't know about it. They were stuck. I mean, it's like one of those things. Once you're in it, you're in it. It's like trying to get out of the Hollywood Bowl. Once you're in it, you're in it. You just got to wait. And people didn't like that. And so we learned from that, though, at the same time, right? And so what we found is that when working with a lot of these big events, the best way to get them to come is to make it as easy as possible for them. But something that people don't think about is you have to have that community buy-in, because so many of these big attractions and events, they understand the impact that a community can make or break with their event. And so, like, for example, American Express, they do a lot of charitable work with the entire Coachella Valley. They get that community input. They talk to them. They meet with people like, what do you guys need? They've made improvements on some of the thoroughfares that lead to the different golf courses. Same with Ironman, right? They're like, okay, we're going to go meet.
Investing in the space.
Oh, 100%. And they're meeting with every single like HOA, community, churches, anybody that's impacted along the route. They've met with them, and they have a relationship with them, because they understand if we don't have community buy-in, we're out. Like, they're going to kick us out. They're not going to make us feel welcome. And so I think that's really important and it's something that you kind of don't think about is like the importance of community buy-in, because they live here all year round. You're here for a hot minute.
Yeah. I think having worked at West Hollywood, one of the challenges we saw was the city had certain imperatives and things they were trying to accomplish. And some of those things had to do with, how do I help businesses? How do I make sure the locals are being represented? How do I make sure that everyone's happy?
Yeah.
Every city, city hall has to deal with that.
Yep.
And I can imagine it's a pretty thankless position to be in. And then you have the DMO separate. So Visit West Hollywood was separate from the city. And there was a bit of a buffer there. But there were still programs we were asked to help develop.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't have, it must be nice to be able to walk down the hall and say, hey, there's this thing we're trying to do. And I know there's some hoops.
Yep.
So what are the hoops? What do we need to worry about? And are there hoops that I can kind of like bend a little bit? Or what can we do? It's nice when you're in the office with those folks and have a good relationship with them.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, we definitely have faced those challenges where it's like one department may buy into an event more so than another, or one department is responsible for more of it. But it's literally having those conversations to go like, look, at the end of the day, this event needs to happen. We need to work together to make sure that, we're all in compliance. Everything's good. Permits are taken out. Inspections are completed, whatever the case is, but also making sure that the experience for either the resident or the visitor who's attending is also,
great.
Amazing. Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, kind of putting the tourism hat back on, how do you guys measure your success?
It's $1 million question.
There it is right there.
So it's interesting, again, from a city perspective versus a DMO. For us with the city, we have, so the way this works, and every city is a little bit different, but for our city, the way it works is the entire organization reports to the city manager, okay? And then the city manager is the one who reports to mayor and council. So a lot of people sometimes are like, oh, I'm going to talk to the mayor. It's like, okay, but they don't necessarily, they don't necessarily make those decisions for staff, if you will. They can have input, absolutely, and recommendations, but the way it works is we all report to the city manager reports to the council. And so what's interesting is, we look at that and we go, okay, mayor and council, they want to see ROI because at the end of the day, it's taxpayer dollars, right? And from a DMO, it's a little bit different because
it's a little more squishy.
Yeah, you've got some, room to work with, if you will. Here, it's literally like they want to see analytics, right? Mm-hmm. So it is difficult when you have, let's say, print ads. Well, I can tell you what the distribution is, and I can tell you what the supposed readership is, but I can't guarantee those numbers. And a lot of times it is educating council or even the public, right?
On what the actual measurables should be for a given effort.
Exactly. Every year I report out, I do once a year kind of like a recap. Hey, this is everything we did for the most part. And here's our numbers, right? So, for example, it's increase in website traffic, increase in social media likes or accounts, right? Things like that. But it's also exposure of like, yeah, I did see our ad in such and such, or I did hear this, or whatever it is. And
there's an interesting political component to that, where it's like sometimes people want their stuff to be seen somewhere else where they see stuff. Exactly.
And I'm very fortunate. I have literally an amazing council. I have an amazing city manager. There's a mayor and 4 council members, and some may understand marketing more than others. And I'm lucky in the sense that the ones that don't necessarily understand it also don't pretend to understand it. And so when I recommend something, they kind of go, we hired you, you're the expert, go for it. I know some other cities don't get that luxury. It's like you have to educate your council or your stakeholders or whoever it is sometimes. And here, what it comes down to is for them, the measurement, if you will, is everything that I'm reporting. Here's the analytics, here's this, here's that. But it's also that they have a community who's happy.
Yeah.
So we are getting those tourism dollars, right? So like our businesses, they're bringing in more money because we have more tourists. So check that box. But then we have residents who are informed of local happenings, right? And they're attending, check that box. So like it's interesting because the measurement isn't necessarily, I had, 20,000 views on this post. It was my residents are happy and informed, and my visitors are happy.
Yeah, it did double duty, and it's
exactly.
Whenever possible, when you can overlap those things, that's really great.
Yeah, it's not easy to do because, and our council is very active in the community, so they're asking those questions. Mm-hmm. Oh, how did you find out about such and such event? Yeah. Right, and
little impromptu surveys of people.
Yeah,
yeah. So, how are you guys splitting? For those listening, a little disclosure. So I got to work on Marcie's account at my prior agency. And so I have a little bit of insight into kind of how you guys were discovering, hey, how do we split apart our efforts to try to address our locals, to try to really reorient, to not just be a tourism department, but be a tourism and engagement almost department. So I saw some of that stuff. Maybe you could talk a little bit about over the last 2 or 3 years, kind of what that has looked like and then where it is now.
Sure. I'll go back a little further too. So when I first joined the city of La Quinta, my predecessor told me, we only focus on tourism. We don't focus on locals. And I was like, what, really? Like, how do you not, these are people that can like literally walk up to your door and be like, what's going on? The other part was we also keep marketing and economic development separate, which is also where I'm going, what?
Yeah.
So as soon as I had the opportunity to make those calls and make those decisions, I literally moved things around. It was like a game of Tetris, trying to make everything fit, but also like, okay, it's coming at you fast. And so for us, really understanding our community. And we started to make those choices or make those changes, and really understanding like, okay, La Quinta is one of 9 cities in the greater Palm Springs area. And everybody knows Palm Springs. Some people may know La Quinta, but not necessarily. And so one of my goals was we were going to make La Quinta its own destination. So when somebody says, I live or I work in La Quinta, people aren't assuming it's a hotel chain.
Right.
They know where it is. And so that was a big goal for us. Then COVID hit. And everything changed, right? Like, I'm sure I'm not the first to say it, definitely not the last, but everything really did change. And because there was this heightened sense of panic across the world, everything became urgent. Everything became important. And so, while marketing took a back seat, we still recognized we needed to bring tourism back as soon as we were able to. But we found that our residents were much more passionate and vocal about bringing in anybody to the community because there was this fear, right? Like if they come, they're going to bring whatever they got with them. And so we saw, or we actually polled and really had conversations with our stakeholders, our businesses, our residents of like, what do you guys, what's your biggest gripe and what's your biggest like measure of success? And what we heard was, we don't know that you guys are hearing us. And we thought, wow, like from a city to hear from the residents, like we don't feel like you hear us, or we don't feel like you're informing us. And, behind the scenes is like, oh my gosh, most of us were working like 19, 20-hour days during COVID. So we took a pause. I was like, hold on, we got to like really think this through, because again, going back to the community buy-in, they're not going to buy into anything we say or do, not even just from tourism, but from like an entire organization. And so we really wanted them to understand that like, hey, none of this is possible without you. So we were able to literally like almost brainstorm and think of like, what are we doing here? And so we created this campaign where we really focused on our residents, the community, the experiences. Like La Quinta is known for being like super healthy, lots of outdoor activity, art, right? And so we wanted to embrace all that, but from a local's perspective. And we created an amazing campaign, Love La Quinta, where we really did focus almost 100% of our efforts on, connecting with our community. And La Quinta is known as the gem of the desert. And we kind of played on that, and we kind of, shifted some stuff around, but we really realized that the gem was like our residents. They're the gems that make up the city. And so by completely changing the way we did things, so that we can like go, hey, we hear you, we see you, we love you, like none of this is possible without you. And it just, the community buy into it, it was like, oh my gosh, exponential.
Where do you, so kind of on a practical standpoint, getting that information from residents, how did you practically get that? Was it at council meeting? Like what was the format in which you received that information?
It was kind of a blend. So like we have, even during COVID with like our Zoom council meetings, which was like such a weird thing, but I mean, I'm literally listening to residents when they do like public comment at council meetings, right? It's like, I'm hearing what they're saying. I'm writing it down. I'm literally following social media and all the comments that are coming with every single thing I'm posting, and like understanding like, okay, this person doesn't feel heard because they're still concerned about blah or whatever the case is, right? And then really like getting involved and immersed with our business community, like, hey, businesses were suffering everywhere. And La Quinta was fortunate enough that we had 2 businesses closed during COVID, and both of them were national retailers who closed like
a bunch of places.
Like pretty much everywhere, right? And so we were fortunate that we were able to like nobody else left, small business owners
Ride out the
closed.
storm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like literally getting that input from those businesses and then even our stakeholders, like, why is it you guys are not feeling like you're heard, or why do you feel like you're not being educated or informed? And so it was literally like a year of just gathering info so that we can then figure out how to fix it, right? And then also learn from it. I think that's a big thing is like, people slap Band-Aids on things left and right, and it's like, great. And then what happens when that Band-Aid starts to peel off?
Yeah.
Right? Learn from it and admit. Like that's I think we're such a transparent city that we make a mistake, we own it. Yeah. Like nobody's perfect, including city government, right? And we really wanted to address like, hey, we hear you. We're going to learn from that. We're going to modify. We're going to pivot. We're going to change. But we're going to learn from it. We're going to grow from it. And we found that people were like, okay, they hear us. They're admitting that they didn't, maybe didn't do something, or that maybe that wasn't the right choice of, or avenue to go down to promote something or whatever the case is. But it was like, okay, I feel like the community is so forgiving of like, nobody's perfect.
So it sounds like having a good relationship with your locals is like having a good relationship.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
seriously.
You're like listening and you're, okay, I'm active listening.
I'm active listening.
I'm hearing you. I definitely hear you. I don't like what I hear.
I'm like, oh, it's not what I wanted to hear, but I hear you. Yeah, 100%.
So one of the things that I think city government as well as DMO kind of stakeholders might do is they go, I know you're trying to figure out a problem, whatever that problem may be, but we still got to we still have a budget this year. We still have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, did COVID allow a lot more of a suppression of that noise of like, we still need to be doing stuff right now instead of like, hey, I need to listen right now. I gotta listen and decide what the right move is.
No.
Okay, right.
It was, I think for us, we were fortunate enough that we really pride ourselves on trying to be proactive. And so the city was already proactively taking measures to be able to work remote before we even knew what work remote really meant. Yeah. So we had an advantage over a lot of our other sister cities because literally I remember that Friday that they finally were like, we're closing schools. And it was like 4:00 and all of us are like, so we're going to be home for 2 weeks with our kids. Cool. Do we have to work? And it was like, yeah, everybody has laptops. So you should be able to work, right? Like we had transitioned,
That's good.
99.9% of staff to like laptops or tablets or whatever. And then just being able to like, remote access our phones and things like that. And so we were really able to, literally go home and on Monday morning,
check in,
start working, right? And so by being able to do that, it was like, cool, we're full steam ahead, where you almost didn't notice, except you had this other component of like fear and anger and all this other stuff happening. And so it was still like, no, you still have to like address all that. Right. While working from home, and God forbid you had kids that were distance learning, you also need to be a teacher.
There, yeah.
Yeah, so it was, but I will say this organization is resilient, and it was like, okay, we're going to figure it out. And we had leadership that was fully supportive of like, hey, I'm on a Zoom call from home and my kid's running through the shot, right? Or whatever it is. And it's like...
And it's fine. People got used to it, yeah.
People got used to it. Like it was one of those things where you're like, a lot of people who had younger kids, like, what are you going to do? You got to figure out how to power through it. Yeah. And that's essentially what we did.
So did you guys have anything during that, the COVID, mid-COVID, late COVID, wherever we are now, post-COVID, did you have anything that you guys tried that you're like, I think this is the answer to the question, and then found that you're like, maybe it's some part of the answer, but maybe we need to adjust it a little bit. Was there anything that comes to mind?
nothing that was like monumental.
Danger.
Right.
Yeah, no.
And again, that goes back to being proactive. I think we're always very like conservative with the moves that we make here. And the reason is because obviously every second that a staff member's here is taxpayers' dollars. And so we want to be cognizant of that. And so like, trying to like understand a Zoom call for a city council meeting and how do you get people to be able to call in? That's, small potatoes compared to some of these other things. But we really were fortunate enough that like, we didn't get too crazy with branching out, which then allowed us to not make any monumental mistakes or whatnot. And so it was just minor tweaks, right? Which, okay, cool. I'm cool with minor tweaks.
Yeah.
I don't like monumental disasters. I'll take minor tweaks.
Okay, so you guys did the listening part during COVID and trying to deal with all the things that a lot of destinations were dealing with going, okay, well, what are we now?
Yeah.
I feel like just before COVID and maybe perhaps in 2019 or so, a lot of destinations started talking about destination management, where prior they had been talking destination marketing. A lot of that, as far as I can tell, was they were getting people traveling so much to certain areas. And of course, there's a compounding effect with social media. And so the most popular areas become exponentially more popular and it creates problems for the organization. I hear over and over, I hear that COVID was something like a reset to go, okay, wow. So we can things can come back to some new baseline, and maybe we can figure out how to build programs that orient people to other places in the city. Did you guys have anything like that as part of your, you did a lot toward locals, but is it wayfinding? Is it, hey, you guys, if you don't know about this place in your city, go check it out.
Yeah. Well, interesting. So yes, we did a lot of, because, everybody was like, taking a walk outside was like vacation, right? Yeah. Because you just wanted to get out of your four walls. Sometimes you wanted to get away from your significant other and your kids, right? You're just like, I need anything. And so what we found was we really started to focus kind of our management efforts on the outdoor activity. So, hey, you know what? You can go take a hike at one of our many hiking trails or ride your bikes. There is, we have art in public places. Take a walk and go with, take your kids, don't take your kids, whatever. Go check out the different things. And so being able to really reintroduce the city to our locals. But then what ended up happening is I want to pat myself on the back and say we did such an amazing job reintroducing the city, to the
little golf claps going on over here. Yeah,
was that word got out, and so when everybody was working remote, all our friends from LA, San Diego, Orange County were like, "Hey, well, remote doesn't mean I need to be in my own house." Yeah. And what we found was, our Airbnbs, STVRs were going through the roof. And as soon as somebody had a little taste of normal back to life, right? It was we're going to throw a party. And it's whoa, hold on, right? Which then upsets kind of the locals, which I get that.
Yeah.
But
challenging dynamic.
It really is. It's like you give them an inch, they take a mile. But the other part too was that people were relocating from LA, Orange County, San Diego, because they were like, well, I have to work remote. I'm not planning on going back into my office in downtown LA or downtown San Diego or wherever, right? So why don't I move my family
where there's a better lifestyle balance,
slower pace, hey, schools are great. I can go outside. Hey, guess what? I can afford more property. Then
might be a little hotter during the summertime, but you got air conditioning.
I have air conditioning, or I have a pool, right? And so
you have space for a pool. Yeah.
It was crazy. We had an influx in the housing market, which everybody did, but legit. We had a Dutch Brothers open up, first one in Riverside County here in La Quinta, and they opened up right before COVID hit, and a lot of the people who came out to train those employees were from Pacific Northwest. Well, all I heard, I made friends with all of them. All I heard was, hey, I can't find a house to buy here because I want to stay. And it's okay.
Yeah. I can't help you
I
with
can't
that,
help you.
but,
I'm not in real
I'm glad to hear
estate.
it.
Yeah. I mean, they all wanted to stay and they were willing to buy a house together. Like,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, me and my buddy, we want to buy a house. We can afford to buy a house here.
And they're asking you for the scoop.
Yeah. They're literally like, where are we not looking? And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was interesting because it was almost like, yep, we were reintroducing the city to the locals, but then word got out and then everybody else was kind of like, hey, that's a good idea. I'd like to move there too.
I feel like it seems like a new base of people. So obviously you have people who have lived here for quite a long time or perhaps grew up here and then left and maybe came back. But to see this new base that has pride in the city is a really cool thing.
100%.
Do you feel like you're seeing that continue to grow, or is it sort of like, okay, cool, we had that spike during COVID?
No, it's still happening. There's been a couple of business owners that either had like parents lived here, friends, whatever. They would come out to visit and they were such in a fast-paced lifestyle that they were like, man, it's nice to come here and just take a breather, right? And then it was like, I'm going to move here. Cool, right? And then it was like, I'm going to open a business here. Okay. We have a couple that literally have opened in the last, I'm not even exaggerating, probably 2 years. I can name about half a dozen that moved here from either LA, Orange County, San Diego, Pacific Northwest, came to visit somebody, fell in love, bought a house, opened up one business, and some of them even opened up two businesses. Completely different businesses too. I was like, sweet. And we talk about that. We have a monthly publication called The Gem, and we talk about that in our February issue because it's all about love, La Quinta, and how they fell in love with it because they came to visit. It's one family. They came to visit their grandparents, I guess their parents, their kids' grandparents, fell in love with it. We're like, this is great. Told friends came out, and then some more friends came out. And the main original group opened up a business, and then all the friends got together and said, let's open up a restaurant together.
Cool.
And each of them brought like a different aspect.
Right.
Like one was like marketing, one was like a chef from New York, came out here, was like, yeah, I'm here. I'm good to go. And so it's just showing like it's not slowing down, which is exciting, but it's also like, yeah, okay, we can do this.
So you mentioned, you got businesses opening, you have people moving here, you have positive feedback either in council meetings or perhaps less negative feedback related to certain things.
Yeah.
You have partnerships with organizations like American Express that they are trying to address the problems before they happen. Going back to measurables, some of those things, I suppose, can be measured. You can see like, okay, well, the economic impact of people moving here, our home values going up, our new businesses in certain places, tax revenue. How do you manage all the possible measurables and narrow them down to a few measurables that make sense for you wearing tourism hat, you wearing PIO hat, you wearing, what was the other hat?
Economic development.
Economic development, yes.
and whatever
whatever
other duties
hats
as
show up.
assigned.
Yes, we have a whole drawer.
Yeah. I feel like it changes every year based on council. So, I think it's for me, it's very important to just stay on top of marketing trends. But there's so many marketing trends. It's nearly impossible. Anybody who tells you like I'm on all of it, they're full of it because there's no way, and it changes so quickly. And so I think it's so important. I have very honest conversations with council. I mean, I really do, to go, all right, guys, like honestly, we have a lot of successes to celebrate, and we're always going to be like, yep, let's celebrate those. But then there's what else should we be doing? Could we be doing, or could we be doing better? And so for us, like measurables, honestly, they kind of change. I think it's like, I will say the one constant or the couple constants is like, is our business community thriving?
Yeah.
Right? Yes, they are. Or if somebody's not, why? Is that on us? Is that on tourism? Is it on something they're not doing? What is it? And we are a very business-friendly city. Council, like, oh my gosh, thrives on that, right? And so that is one measurable that, like, it is consistent. How is our businesses? Like, are we getting new businesses? And the ones that we have, are they thriving?
Are they happy? Yeah.
Yeah. Are they happy? Are they expanding? Are they looking to move elsewhere? Why? Are they losing business? Why? And so I think that for us, that is one measurable that is like, it can't be measured in like numbers.
Right.
It really is staff and council going out and like having those
Sentiment
conversations.
checks.
Yeah, it really is. It's like, hey, what do you guys need from us? How are you doing?
Well, that kind of points back to kind of having relationships, friendships, right? Where you're like, hey, you know what? These are people that are here. They're my neighbors.
Yeah.
And
literally,
they're my neighbors, and I want to know how they're doing because maybe I can have an impact on their success
100%.
and help them out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of steering toward the marketing efforts you guys do. Over the years, I've seen, you've got reference points like I've got clicks to my website. I've got a lot of traffic on my website, and there's certain times where it's like, hey, I need to see growth there. I need to see development in that area. You had a city website, or you have a city website, and then you rolled out a more tourism facing, or maybe you could call it an activities facing website that would be appropriate for locals and also appropriate for tourists as well.
Yeah.
How did that split? How were those conversations when that happened?
So that has been kind of like an ongoing thing. We recognize that because we are so transparent, it's one of those things like we almost push out everything. And the reason is because we have such a dynamic population. It used to be, I think, Palm Springs back in the day, I'm going to say before we were even born, was known as like, hey, it's all retirement, right? It's no longer like that. Between the music festivals and the various events here, it is young adults coming out here, young families. And so we push out everything because we're not talking to one demographic or a couple of demographics. And so we are heavy on the information. But we also recognize, like as a tourist, I don't necessarily care what, let's say, the library is doing, right? I don't know many people who are like, I'm going to go on vacation and check out that library.
Get my library card in Riverside County.
Exactly, right? So they're not. And so we understand that, but we have locals who do. And so again, going back to addressing like, hey, we want to talk to our locals because we want them to know that they are heard, but we also needed to talk to our tourists. And those are two different conversations. Sometimes they overlap, but sometimes they don't. And there's those community events that really is for the community. Now, if a tourist shows up, cool, we're going to welcome them too. But let's be real, it's really for our community. And so what we saw was there was kind of like, when we're looking at analytics and seeing where, like, for example, social media, where are our likes coming from, or the people who are adding us, like, where are they coming from? And a lot of it was local. And it was like, okay, because the content is local. And so when we decided to branch, it was like a beta test. Like, all right, I mean, it's free. It's social media. It was before like every single sort of like meta. You have to dig in 75 clicks before you can find the analytics, shows up. But it was like in simpler days where it was like, who cares? We'll just do another account, focus on tourists, and let's just see how it works. Yeah. We're not losing any money. That was the big thing, right? We're not really losing any money.
It's just some time and some effort to put
exactly. And we saw like numbers were growing, and we were like, okay, somebody wants this. And so it was really having those conversations. And then again, just educating and informing council of like, why is there two Facebook accounts, or why is there two websites? And it was like, okay, it makes sense. Because a lot of times, again, it's, partners who are like, hey, can you put this information out for us? And it's like, okay, where does this fit? It's community, cool. It's tourists, cool. So it really was separating that, and it's just cleaner. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I think it's a funny thing to have to explain to somebody, hey, you know what? We have conversations we want to have with certain people, and if other people listen in, cool. And if they get something out of it, awesome. But my hope is that my primary person I'm talking to feels like it's just for them.
I mean, exactly that, right? Like, how do you connect with somebody on different levels, and how do you connect with somebody who has never been here? Yeah. And that's hard when you're competing with so many amazing destinations around the world.
Yeah.
So
Let's give people a little bit of that are listening a little bit of an idea of where you're located. You've referenced Coachella Valley. You've referenced Greater Palm Springs area. You referenced LA and San Diego and Orange County.
We're
and
everywhere.
You even mentioned Pacific Northwest. So I'll say a little bit. You can describe a little bit. So we're east of LA. North or southeast a little bit of LA, and we're northeast of San Diego.
Correct.
About 2.5 hours ish or so.
Yeah, depending on traffic.
Depending on traffic. Generally called the Coachella Valley.
Correct.
And then part of that is also called the Greater Palm Springs area.
Correct. So Coachella Valley is 9 cities. We are one of 9. Our CVB is the Greater Palm Springs CVB. So they've kind of coined that term. So we reference kind of both, but really it is the Coachella Valley.
Yeah.
I really wish the CVB would have been like Greater Coachella Valley. And I get that, but that's because, here at the end of the day, most people know Palm Springs.
Yeah.
They do. And that's awesome. We love our friends in Palm Springs. But for all of us other cities who aren't Palm Springs, we're like, okay, we're important too.
We're raising our
We're
hands
raising
over
our
here.
hands.
Like, hey,
yeah. I mean,
we got
people are
something.
starting, people really, it's interesting. People know Indio because of the music festivals, but they also know the city of Coachella because they think the music festivals are in Coachella, even though they're not. So bummer for city of Coachella because that was a great opportunity there.
So let's talk a little bit about how, you've got Greater Palm Springs CVB that's addressing this whole area, this region. How do you play nice with them? How do you work with them? And this is pertinent to, I think, a lot of destinations that are part of a larger metropolitan area. They're trying to have their voice heard, and perhaps they don't have the same resources that the regional DMO has.
I literally just had this conversation at a conference, and I was speaking with somebody from Laguna Beach. And she's a CVB there, Rachel. She's amazing. We've become very good friends. Shout out to Rachel. But like we were talking about the importance of cities with the CVB, with the DMO to like work together because sometimes it doesn't always happen. Yeah. And it's unfathomable to me because it's like, can you imagine how much stronger the destination could be if everybody worked together? Our CVB is great. They're a powerhouse, and they also have a considerable larger amount of budget. Like we always say, it's a target. So the CVB is like the outer ring of the target. They can cast their net way farther than we can. International, right? Like they were just in, I want to say Ireland or somewhere. And I'm like, what?
You're like, I want to go to Ireland.
I was like, that would be a great city trip. Get those city partners
involved. Can we make an Irish sister city?
I mean, just saying, right? Like they were like, they did this whole like crazy European tour, and it's promoting the destination, and it's amazing. Would I like to see stronger partnership? 100%, because here's the deal. And I get it. A lot of people in international don't know La Quinta, but they know Palm Springs, right? And so when the CVB is out there promoting Greater Palm Springs, it is heavily focused on Palm Springs. And I know I'm guessing that they also promote the other 9 cities, but let's be real. Somebody in Ireland's probably like, what? La Quinta?
Right.
Versus, I've heard of Palm Springs, right?
People tend to gravitate to what they've heard of and they're familiar with.
100%.
And if you're not there, to be a voice for La Quinta, it's harder to have that represented.
And that's exactly, I think, where I would love to see that strengthen with all DMOs in their cities is like, don't just take one or the anchor city or whatever it is. Like that just shows like you're casting your net out far, but you can cast it wider if you include the other like locations or attractions or whatever.
And it seems you'd get some more depth in some of those conversations.
Yes.
I understand that, and this is the same case in LA, right? So you have Discover LA that does a fantastic job driving attention to Los Angeles, and then you have the DMOs, Santa Monica and Beverly Hills and West Hollywood saying, hey, we're over here. Yeah. This is, and it points back to the challenge that DMOs have, which is it's not about getting as many people as you could possibly get to your destination.
Right.
It seems to me that it's that quality over quantity, and it's how do we find the people that connect with us? It's almost a reciprocal relationship where I want to cast my net out or cast my fishing metaphors here. I want to cast out and I want to get people that connect with
100%.
The ethos of this place.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes being that voice and being able to be there, talking to those people is great.
Well, I think too, like sometimes our CVB, they have a great staff who create these amazing like short videos and social videos, right? And it's like, hey, work with us because we can tell you what the new hotspot is, right? We can tell you.
Feed you some real good stuff.
Exactly. We can make those connections. We can make your life easier and like work hand in hand to collaborate on like. The other part too is something to think about is we're always looking at, businesses that are in good standing with the city, right? It's unfortunate. I've seen it in other cities around the United States, probably further than that, where there's the business that'll like bash a city or a business that'll go like on a political tirade. You're like, whoa, we're not.
What's happening here?
Yeah. And so it's really important for us to be like, hey, we want our businesses to be in compliance, right? But we also want businesses that are like, yeah, we're all in good standing. And it doesn't take much to be in good standing with the city. You just got to like not go crazy rogue.
Dot some I's and cross some T's.
And so I think it's important, with the CVBs, it's like, it would like just benefit us all to work together to strengthen what you're doing as a CVB, but then also help the little guy out, help the city out, because it's like, yeah, we're going to point you in the direction or offer you suggestions or recommendations of like new businesses or businesses that may be hurting. Because at the end of the day, CVB doesn't want a business to go out of business, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, we want to point you like, hey, maybe you should focus some effort on this business because they're hurting. They need a little push, a little help. And so I think the importance of collaborating and working together is like, oh my gosh, so important. It's like superpowers unite.
Yeah. What do you think is, so looking at sort of the destination marketing industry, kind of bringing this back full circle, what are some things that you hope to see change that are probably considered norms? Whether people like them or not, they're just the things that happen. We don't have to mention names or anything like that. But what are some things in the next few years that you hope change?
That's a good question. Ooh, deep one. I think it kind of goes back to what I had mentioned at the beginning of this, which is don't overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
I think all of us we're like, what are we, post-COVID? Like, I don't know. It depends on who you talk to, right? But it's like, as we're all emerging out of this like life-changing monumental event, there is no guidebook of like what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
There really isn't. And so I think that the importance, if COVID taught me, I can't speak for anybody else, but if COVID taught me anything, it's the importance of your community, whatever that is, whether it's your destination marketing community, your actual community, the community you work for, but it's the importance of that community and to be able to really collaborate, work together. It's like sometimes I feel like there's this competition and it's like there really isn't.
Yeah.
Because you know what, like you have a beach in your destination and I don't, and there is no competition.
You got a lot of sand though.
It got a lot of sand. we can compete on the sand, right? But it's like there really isn't a need for the competition because I feel like every single destination, every single city has something special to offer their resident, their visitor, whatever, right? And so I think I would love to be able to see more collaboration and really just having those honest conversations like what we're doing, right? It's like having those honest conversations of like, people aren't going to, people who say I'm the expert in this, it's like, are you though?
Right.
Because something's changed.
Things change.
Oh my gosh. Like literally, like, okay, this morning it was this and now tonight it's not. And so it's like, if you're going to claim you're the expert, you better be able to back that up. Instead, have an honest conversation and educate your businesses, your cities, your GM, whoever. Like educate and be open to saying like, hey, I did hear about that new technology. I'm still trying to figure it all out.
I know nothing about that.
I know nothing about it. Yeah, but it's pretty interesting. like we should look at like figuring this out and seeing if this is something that could work for us.
Yeah. Which, by the way, you just you mentioned to me that you got to test out the Apple product that has.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool! It was like going behind the Iron Curtain. It was so amazing to be able to like get invited to Apple and be like, I mean, it was definitely a little bit intimidating, but it was the coolest thing ever because all I wanted to do was like touch and test everything, right? But it is. I mean, I'm sure. So, I got to test out the Apple Vision Pros. It was like end of November, early December. And anytime you get contacted by Apple, it's like, what?
You're like, yes, please. You've chosen me.
Yes.
I am chosen.
Literally. It's like the claw machine in Toy Story where they're picking up the alien, right? And it was so cool. But like the technology that goes into anything, right? But I guarantee you, those things got released on the 2nd. I guarantee you there's tweaks that they need to do left and right. And that just shows you where you have somebody like an Apple who freaking created that technology.
And they realize everything changes.
Everything
needs
changes.
to change constantly.
Literally. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I could work there because it would be so like frustrating to be able to be like, here's my prized possession. And then tomorrow they're like, and you need to fix it.
By the way, that's not it today.
Right. Exactly. And so that's the thing is like, when people are like, oh yeah, I got this, or yeah, I'm the expert. It's like, but are you?
Yeah.
And having that open, I think for me, like seeing in the next few years, it's really collaboration and like, hey, let's bounce ideas off of each other. And oh, you're triple the size of my city. Okay, cool. Then you really should have some answers for me.
You hopefully have something that I don't have.
100%.
I think it's the sentiment that competition is, that the resource of travelers is so finite. And it's like, sure, we have a pie. And everyone thinks, well, if you take that slice of the pie, you're taking some of my pie.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, no. There's a lot of pie.
Yeah.
We got a lot of pie here, people. We got a bakery. And really, it's like you've got pie for every flavor, right?
Yes.
For everything that people like. And I think even beach destinations, using that example, beach destinations, it's like if you're talking about your locals and your business owners, you're talking about a really unique flavor that another beach doesn't have.
Yep.
If you're just talking about beach, we can talk about the type of sand.
Right.
We can talk about the waves.
The water.
The water. We have water. We have waves.
I mean, it's crazy. I think of like, for example, Lahaina. Those poor people, right? Yeah. If we have learned nothing else, the one thing that I have heard from anybody who has gone to Lahaina in the last couple of months is how much the locals are like, please tell people to come.
Yeah.
Because of the economic impact that visitors and tourists have for that destination. And I look at Lahaina, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. And I go, who in their right mind is going to try to compete with Lahaina right now?
Right.
Right? Like, honestly, if anything, we should be like supporting them, right? Yeah. They are a sister destination, whatever that is, to everybody, right? And it's like, let's support them because we can see how quickly a destination can get wiped out.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like in a matter of a day.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, there's probably a little competition amongst some destinations, but at the end of the day, if we all work together, there's plenty of people in the world that are traveling.
Yeah.
Again,
that don't know about your destination.
And don't know how
cool it is.
It's like, let's all work together. Let's all support each other. Let's all help each other out. Because at the end of the day, you don't want 8 billion people coming to your destination in one shot because they're thinking you're the only game in town. You wouldn't be able to handle that infrastructure. So instead, let's all work together and like have that collaboration and support each other.
I can get behind that wish for the future.
I know that. I mean, it's like sunshine and rainbows, just like marketing.
No, but it's great because I think that there are a lot of things that are closely kept by the agencies that are operating and the people at the individual DMOs. Yeah. And I understand that maybe historically it was really necessary, but the way things move so fast, it's like, oh, no, you know what? Let's share it whenever possible.
100%.
And see if you can come up with your own flavor of that thing. I might be doing something similar and you go and make your own remix of it.
What do they say? Imitation is the best form of flattering.
Yes, exactly,
and like legitimately, I have seen a lot of the campaigns that I have done in the last couple of years been repeated from some of our sister cities. And I'm like, you're welcome.
Yeah, you can have it.
Yeah, I'm like, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? Good for you.
Yeah.
Cool. I hope it works out. I hope it was as beneficial to you as it was to me. Because at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want a city next to me to be like,
struggling.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Well, I want to be mindful of time. I know we have a little bit left, but is there anything that you wanted to discuss to kind of wrap things up about what you're working on or what you're excited about for the next year, that you can share?
Yeah, I think, we're taking the Love La Quinta campaign on the road. So, we've really focused, like I said, on the community, and now we're going to be able to start expanding that again. We're not losing what we've built in the community, but now it's like, okay, we're going to slowly start taking it further out into our drive market, and then moving it forward little by little. Because again, it's quality, not quantity. And it's like, okay, we're going to introduce people who may not have ever heard of La Quinta. We're going to introduce La Quinta to them, but we want to do it right. We want to make sure that they understand. Like, the lifestyle here is so chill and laid back that we can't come all aggressive.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to be a chill and laid back campaign, but also a efficient one. And so we really are looking at like expanding that and just bringing a piece of La Quinta to, the world.
Cool. I think that's a perfect spot to wrap things up. This has been fantastic. And
yes.
As always, I'm really appreciative that you are open and willing to talk and sharing some of the stories. I hope to hear more in the near future.
This is very cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcie. Thanks for listening to this episode of Destination Interesting. It's my hope with this podcast to have great, casual, informative chats with friends and experts, both inside and out of the travel and tourism space. If you'd like to nominate yourself or someone else for the show, please reach out to us at destinationinteresting.com. Hope to chat soon.